There is a reason you are here. Not by chance, not by accident, but by a current of invisible precision that has been guiding you to this very moment. You pressed play on this video, and the title, Let Go of the Old Self, Quantum Frequency Dissolves Your Hidden Patterns Don't Skip, echoed back to something deep inside of you. A whisper that said, "This is it. This is the turning." I want you to pause for just a moment and let yourself feel the truth of that. The truth that life has been nudging you, again and again, with signs so subtle and yet so undeniable. The repeated numbers, the déjà vu moments, the strange alignment of people and places that seemed to arrive right when you were ready. These weren't coincidences. They were quantum invitations, soft reminders that the fabric of reality is not rigid. It bends, it responds. And tonight, it is responding to you. You may think you found this channel through an algorithm, a suggestion, or a random scroll. But the deeper knowing is that you found it because your frequency called it in. You are not a passive observer in your life. You are the magnet, the attractor, the living quantum field. And now, the field is ready to show you the hidden architecture of your patterns, the very loops that have kept you circling in familiar timelines. I want you to imagine your life as a river. For years, perhaps decades, the current has carried you along a certain bend, familiar banks, familiar stones, familiar obstacles. And no matter how hard you tried to push against it, you seem to return to the same curves, the same echoes, the same shadows. But what if I told you that tonight, something shifts, that the current itself is ready to fork into a new stream, one where the old self dissolves like mist, and the quantum frequency of who you really are begins to shape your path? This is not about adding something new to yourself. It is about remembering what has always been waiting behind the noise. The version of you who no longer negotiates with fear. The you who no longer clings to patterns of lack. The you who remembers that collapse is not the end, it is the birth of coherence. As you listen, you may notice your body shifting, a slight chill down your spine, a breath that deepens without effort. That is not coincidence either. That is resonance. The field is already beginning to reorganize as you tune into these words. You are stepping into the in-between, where time stretches, where the past loosens its grip, and where the old self quietly dissolves. So stay with me. Stay with yourself. The reason you are here is not only to listen, but to awaken what has been dormant. For tonight, you will see the loop. You will recognize the pattern, and you will learn how to let it go not by force, but by shifting into the frequency that dissolves it on contact. This is where it begins. The turning of the river, the soft unraveling of timelines, the invitation to step into a quantum frequency that has been waiting for you all along. And as we move forward, you'll discover what those hidden patterns truly are, why they repeat, and how your attention, your most sacred energy, is the key to dissolving them forever. You are here for a reason, and that reason is already unfolding. You have felt it, haven't you? That strange déjà vu sensation of walking in circles through your own life. Different faces, different places, yet somehow the same script keeps replaying. It may show up in relationships, where the characters change but the ending feels eerily familiar. It may appear in money, where despite effort, the same scarcity echoes back. Or perhaps it whispers in the quiet of your mind, where thoughts loop like a record skipping, repeating the same old melody of doubt, fear, and hesitation. This is what I call the observer loop. It is when you are both watching yourself and judging yourself, caught between the roles of actor and critic. You want to move forward, but you are tethered by an invisible cord that keeps pulling you back into timelines you thought you'd escaped. And every time you think, this time it will be different, the loop replays, slightly rearranged but still unmistakably the same. Why does this happen? Because the quantum field responds not to your wishes but to your frequency. And your frequency is often shaped by unconscious patterns, invisible programs you inherited, absorbed, or repeated, so often that they became the default signal you broadcast. Imagine a radio station transmitting the same old song, day after day, even when you long for a new one. If the station doesn't change, the music doesn't change. This is the timeline trap. You believe you are moving through time linearly, yet in truth you are spiraling. The same energy attracts the same circumstances. The same unexamined belief generates the same outcome. And so you walk forward, only to find yourself back at the same starting point. It feels like progress, but it is a circle disguised as a line. Think back to the moments when you swore, "Never again. Never again will I allow myself to be treated that way. Never again will I sabotage my dreams. Never again will I shrink in the presence of my own power." And yet, the never again eventually became once more. This is not weakness. This is not failure. This is simply physics. Energy follows coherence, and until the pattern is dissolved at its root, it keeps reconstructing itself in new forms. Some of you may feel this most strongly in your body. Notice how your nervous system reacts before your mind even registers what is happening. The tightness in your chest when someone raises their voice, the sinking in your stomach when you check your bank account, the sudden fatigue when faced with an opportunity to step forward. These are not random reactions. They are quantum echoes of past patterns, embedded as frequencies in your cells. Others may see it play out in time itself. Have you ever noticed how the same seasons in your life bring the same challenges? How every year, around the same month, a familiar crisis or loss or awakening arrives? Time is not just a straight arrow, it is a spiral. And if you don't shift frequency, the spiral brings you face to face with the same lessons, again and again, until you realize the pattern is not punishing you. It is trying to wake you. And here is the deeper truth. You are not trapped because you are broken. You are not repeating because you are cursed. You are simply vibrating at the frequency of the old self. And the quantum field is faithful. It will keep showing you reflections of that self until you choose to let it dissolve. The loop is not your enemy. The trap is not punishment. It is the training ground where your soul learns to recognize itself. But right now, in this moment, you are beginning to glimpse the architecture of it. You are starting to see that the loop is not as solid as it once appeared, that the trap is not locked, that the doors have always been open, you simply didn't notice because the walls of familiarity made you believe you were confined. So let me ask you, what patterns have you been circling? Which loops have held you? Can you name them? Not as failures, but as teachers that have been showing you the contours of your own frequency. Can you admit to yourself, with compassion, that the same energy has been calling the same results not because you are weak, but because you are powerful enough to create reality even unconsciously? The river of your life has bent the same way for so long that the grooves seem permanent. But rivers shift. Streams carve new paths. And when the frequency changes, the entire timeline changes. In the next part, we will dive deeper. You will see how science and symbolism converge, how quantum physics itself reveals the truth behind your patterns, and how the poetry of your own being has always known what the equations are just now beginning to say. Because once you understand the language of both worlds, you will see that dissolving the old self is not just possible, it is inevitable. The language of science and the language of spirit may appear different, yet both are pointing to the same truth. You are not just a person walking through time, you are a quantum field collapsing into form. Think of the double-slit experiment, that simple yet haunting demonstration where particles behave like waves until they are observed. In the moment of observation, probability collapses into a single outcome. Do you see the parallel? Your life has been a series of observations, beliefs, judgments, expectations, collapsing infinite possibilities into repeating patterns. When you observe through the lens of the old self, you keep collapsing into the same outcome. And yet, beneath this repetition lies a hidden poetry, a reminder that you are both the particle and the wave. You are the solid form and the infinite possibility. Just as light can be both wave and particle, you can be both the story you tell and the silence between stories. Imagine your thoughts as photons. Each one carries energy, direction, intention. When scattered, they form noise, random flickers of light that blur into static. But when aligned, when coherent, those photons form a laser, concentrated, powerful, able to cut through steel. This is the difference between a distracted mind repeating old frequencies and a coherent mind dissolving them. You are not weak. You are simply scattered. And coherence is what transforms scattered light into a force of creation. Now, let's step into metaphor. Picture yourself as a tuning fork. Each time you experience fear, doubt, or old conditioning, you vibrate at a certain frequency, and the universe, like an endless hall of mirrors, sends back matching vibrations. That is why patterns repeat. The fork hums, the hall responds. But when you shift your vibration, when you allow a new resonance to take root, the hall must echo differently. Reality has no choice but to rearrange itself around the new signal. This is why mystics across cultures spoke of awakening as remembering, as tuning in. They did not have the language of quantum physics, but they had the poetry of symbols. The wave was called spirit. The collapse was called incarnation. The interference pattern was called karma. Different words, same truth. And so, when we speak of letting go of the old self, we are not speaking of destruction, but of releasing the tuning fork from its narrow frequency. We are inviting it to vibrate in harmony with a larger song, the symphony of your true self, which has always been humming beneath the surface. Have you noticed how symbols appear in your life? A butterfly landing on your path, a clock striking 11:11, a dream that feels more real than waking. These are not random ornaments. They are the subconscious trying to remind you that your inner world and outer world are entangled. Physics calls it non-locality. Spirit calls it synchronicity. Either way, the message is clear. What you see outside is entangled with what you hold inside. The physicist, David Bohm, once described the universe as an implicate order, where everything is enfolded into everything else, like a hologram. Every piece of the hologram contains the whole image. Do you feel the weight of that? It means you are not a fragment wandering lost. You are the whole field, encoded into a single point of awareness. That is why when you shift your frequency, you do not just change yourself, you ripple the hologram of reality itself. So let us marry the science and the symbolism, the atom and the archetype, the equation and the myth. Because when you begin to see them as one, the old self loses its grip. The old self thrives on separation. Science versus spirit, matter versus energy, you versus the universe. But the awakened self knows the truth. There is no separation, only entanglement. You are the particle being observed, and you are the wave of infinite potential. You are the scattered light, and you are the laser waiting to be focused. You are the tuning fork, vibrating alone, and you are the symphony calling yourself back into harmony. And right now, in this very moment, the symbols are converging with the science inside of you. You may feel a stirring, a recognition, a quiet hum in your chest, as if the tuning fork is already shifting. That is the signal of coherence beginning to return. But here is the question. Are you ready to recognize it? Are you willing to see that the science is not abstract, and the symbolism is not imaginary, that both are mirrors reflecting you? This leads us into the next step, for recognition requires resonance, and resonance begins when you allow yourself to be seen, fully and without mask. So in the next part, I will ask you questions not for answers, but for remembrance. Questions that act like mirrors, reflecting back the patterns you've lived, so that you may see them clearly and know that you are more than the loop. Pause here with me. Take a breath, not just a shallow inhale, but a breath that reaches into the forgotten corners of your being. Let it expand. Let it soften you. And as it does, allow these questions to ripple through you like stones dropped into still water. Have you noticed how life sometimes feels like a stage where you're reciting lines you didn't write? How many mornings have you woken with the quiet ache that today will repeat yesterday? And when you try to break free, does it ever feel like invisible hands are gently pulling you back, reminding you of who you once were, not who you are becoming? Let the questions linger. Do not rush to answer. Simply feel them as invitations. When you look at your relationships, do you see the same archetypes appearing, different faces, but the same roles being played? The critic, the betrayer, the savior, the one who withholds love, the one who overwhelms with too much of it. What if these characters are not mistakes, but mirrors, quantum echoes replayed, so you can see the vibration you are carrying inside? When you open your heart to a new possibility, do you hear the familiar whisper of self-doubt, the subtle voice that says, "Not yet, not you, not this time"? Can you see how that whisper has guided entire choices, reshaping your future without you even realizing? What would happen if, instead of resisting it, you listened closely, not to obey, but to recognize the frequency beneath it? Think about your body, the way your shoulders tense before you even enter certain rooms, the way your breath shortens when money or love is mentioned. Do you notice how the body remembers patterns even when the mind insists it has moved on? What story is your nervous system still telling, long after your conscious self has outgrown it? And let us not forget time. How many times have you circled back to the same lessons this month, this year, this decade? Do you feel the spiral, the strange recurrence of themes you thought you'd resolved? What if time itself is trying to show you that healing is not linear, but holographic, that each return is a deeper layer, asking not for frustration, but for recognition? Stay with these questions, because they are not here to accuse you. They are here to awaken you, to remind you that the old self is not a curse. It is simply a frequency echoing itself until you decide to shift the dial. Let me ask you something softer now. Have you ever felt, even for a fleeting second, that you are not the one who is lost, but the one who is finding? That the fear is not a wall but a veil? That beneath the looping patterns, there is a quiet knowing, waiting like a still flame inside of you? And can you admit to yourself that part of you already knows the truth, that the reason you are here, listening, breathing, feeling, is because you are ready to dissolve what once defined you? That the repetition is not endless, but purposeful, carrying you toward the very moment where recognition breaks the spell? These questions are mirrors, and as you let them reflect back at you, notice how something begins to stir. Not panic, not guilt, but recognition. A soft whisper of, yes, I see it now. I see myself. Because this is the first step toward dissolving the old self. Not force, not denial, but recognition. To name the loop as the loop, to see the trap as the training ground, to admit that the same vibration creates the same outcome. And in doing so, you loosen the grip it has held over you. So I ask you one final question. What if the very patterns that once felt like prison bars are actually the key? What if the loop is not your enemy, but the teacher that has been guiding you to this doorway all along? Hold that question close, because it will guide us into the next stage. You are about to discover that the solution is not hidden in effort, struggle, or more doing. It is hidden in something far more powerful and far more simple: the quality of your attention, the coherence of your frequency. In the next part, we will pull back the veil and reveal the hidden truth, that the old self dissolves not by pushing harder, but by tuning sharper, not by chasing, but by shifting. And when you see it, you will understand why the frequency of your attention is the most powerful alchemy you possess. You have seen the loop. You have felt the repetition. You have recognized the way your own energy calls familiar outcomes into being. And now comes the question that trembles in the center of your chest. How do I step free? Most of the world will tell you it takes forced discipline, endless effort, constant resistance against your old self. But you already know how exhausting that becomes. You've tried to outwork your patterns, to outrun your doubts, to rewrite your story through sheer willpower. And yet, somehow, the loop remained. Why? Because the loop cannot be broken by fighting it. It dissolves only when the frequency shifts. Imagine for a moment that your life is a film projected on a screen. You've been so busy trying to edit the characters and the script that you forgot to look at the projector. The images on the screen are not the source. They are reflections. The true source is the light passing through the film strip, and until the film strip changes, the story repeats. That film strip is your attention. Not just what you think, but how you think. Not just what you focus on, but the quality of focus you bring. Scattered, anxious, fragmented attention projects a scattered, anxious, fragmented reality. But when attention becomes coherent, when you give it the stillness of presence, the openness of trust, it reorganizes the field around you. The old story can no longer hold. Science calls this coherence. Spiritual traditions call it presence, prayer, or surrender. But whatever the name, the principle is the same. It is not force that rewrites your life. It is frequency. It is not more effort that dissolves the old self. It is higher alignment. Let me give you an image. Picture a snowflake forming in midair. At first, it is just random clusters of water molecules, chaotic, unstable. But then, as temperature and vibration align, the molecules lock into a perfect crystalline pattern. Beauty emerges not from force, but from coherence. Your life works the same way. Chaos dissolves into clarity when the vibration stabilizes into alignment. This is why meditation, breathwork, or even moments of stillness in nature feel so powerful. Not because they add something to you, but because they shift the quality of your attention. They bring coherence to the scattered signal. They tune the instrument of your being so the song you emit changes and the universe, faithfully echoing, responds. So what does this mean for you, right here, right now. It means the old self does not have to be destroyed, punished, or erased. It simply dissolves when you stop feeding it with your fragmented attention. The loop is maintained by your unconscious focus. Withdraw that energy, and the pattern loses fuel. Shine your coherence elsewhere, and a new reality crystallizes in its place. Ask yourself, what happens when you stop staring at the same problem and instead tune into the frequency of possibility? What happens when you stop collapsing into fear and begin holding attention in the resonance of trust? What happens when you stop scattering your light and begin focusing it into coherence? This is the hidden truth. You do not escape the old self by becoming more. You escape it by becoming clear. Clear enough to recognize the illusion. Clear enough to no longer energize it. Clear enough to allow the quantum field to reorganize itself into the image of your higher self. And here is something beautiful. The more coherent your attention becomes, the less effort you need. Life itself begins to rearrange. Opportunities appear, synchronicities multiply, relationships shift, not because you forced them, but because the field has no choice but to respond to the new signal. So let this sink in. The solution has always been simpler than you imagined. Not easy, but simple. The old self dissolves through frequency, and frequency shifts through attention. The quality of your attention is the most sacred alchemy you will ever hold. In a moment, I will invite you into a ritual not of struggle, but of intention. A way to use even the smallest of actions to anchor coherence, to weave your attention into the field with precision and purpose. Because you are not here to passively listen. You are here to participate, to act, not with effort, but with resonance. In the next part, we will step into this ritual together, and you will see how even something as simple as a like, a comment, or a share can become a sacred act, an energetic declaration to the universe that says, I am ready, I am here, I choose coherence now. Now that you understand the shift is not effort but frequency, you can begin to see even the smallest actions in your life differently. Because when you act with intention, you are no longer moving randomly in the field. You are sending out ripples that shape the field itself. Let us reframe something together. Here on this platform, you are given the option to like, to comment, to share, to subscribe. Most people treat these as casual, almost meaningless clicks. But you are not most people. You are one who is awakening to the truth that nothing is casual in a quantum field. Every action, every gesture, every breath carries frequency. And when you act with consciousness, those frequencies amplify. So, imagine this. When you press the like button, it is not just approval, it is resonance. You are saying to the quantum field, yes, this frequency aligns with me, and I amplify it. That single act sends coherence into the digital realm, creating an energetic signature that others can feel, even if they don't understand why. When you leave a comment, it is not just words on a screen. It is a declaration. The moment you write, I am ready to let go of the old self, you inscribe that frequency into the shared field. Others will read it and be reminded of their own readiness. In this way, your words become a tuning fork, reverberating through the collective, dissolving patterns not just for you, but for all who encounter them. And when you share, it is not just forwarding content, it is transmission. You become a node in the quantum web, carrying the signal into circles you cannot see. Just as a single photon can trigger a cascade of entanglement, your act of sharing plants, seeds, and timelines far beyond your direct awareness. Even subscribing something so ordinary becomes sacred when reframed. It is not about following a channel. It is about aligning your frequency with a stream of remembrance. Each time you subscribe to teachings that lift you, you are telling the field, this is the energy I choose to receive again and again. And the field responds by delivering synchronicities, insights, and opportunities that match. Do you see how nothing is trivial? How the digital actions others overlook can become your rituals of alignment. You are weaving coherence not only into your own life, but into the web of humanity itself. And this is not confined to the screen. Every gesture carries frequency. When you light a candle, when you drink water with intention, when you breathe consciously for 3 seconds before speaking, you are performing rituals of coherence. You are practicing the art of sacred attention. So I invite you now to act, but act differently than before. Do not click mindlessly. Do not write empty words. Instead, let your action be an anchor. Press like, as if you are pressing your energy into the collective field. Comment as if you are declaring a truth not only to yourself, but to the universe. Share as if you are transmitting light into places you cannot see. Subscribe as if you are signing your name into the quantum book of awakening. These acts may seem small, but remember, so does a single photon. And yet, one photon entering the double-slit experiment can alter the entire interference pattern. You are that photon. Your coherent act is that shift. This is why rituals matter. They remind the unconscious mind that what you do carries meaning. They remind your nervous system that coherence is being chosen. And they remind the field that you are awake, engaged, declaring, I am no longer feeding the old self. I am nourishing the new. So, as you listen, take a breath and choose. Anchor your energy not only by hearing these words, but by participating in them. Let your attention become action, and your action become ritual. Because in the next part, we will expand this even further. We will see how your personal coherence is not just for you, it is for all of us. You are not dissolving the old self in isolation. You are participating in something vast, something collective, something humanity itself has been waiting for. The moment you choose coherence, you do not only shift your timeline, you ripple into the morphic field of the planet, and that ripple is how we awaken together. You may think your transformation belongs only to you, that the dissolving of your old self is a private matter between your heart and the universe. But let me remind you of a truth that quantum physics and ancient mystics both whisper. Nothing is isolated. Everything is entangled. The frequency you carry ripples outward, whether you are aware of it or not. Your thoughts, your breath, your coherence, they do not stay locked inside your skin. They radiate into the morphic field, the invisible web that connects us all. Rupert Sheldrake called this morphic resonance. Mystics called it collective consciousness. Physicists call it non-locality. Different names, one reality. When you shift, humanity shifts. Think of it like a tuning fork again. Strike one fork, and another across the room begins to vibrate. The two were never touching, yet one set the other into motion. This is how your awakening works. When you dissolve your old self, the frequency of your new coherence calls to others, silently inviting their vibration to rise. They may not even know why, but something in them begins to soften, to awaken, to shift. This is why your healing is never selfish. Your alignment is not indulgence, it is service. Because each time you let go of a pattern, you release more than yourself. You untangle a thread in the great web of humanity. You dissolve not only your old self, but a fragment of the old story that has bound us all. Think about the people in your life. A friend, a lover, a stranger at the grocery store. Do you notice how moods spread? One person's laughter can shift an entire room. One person's anger can collapse it. This is resonance in action. Now imagine what happens when your coherence, the calm, awakened, radiant frequency of your true self, enters a space. You may say nothing. You may do nothing. Yet others feel safer, lighter, clearer simply because you are there. And this expands even further. The global field is not just theory, it is measurable. Studies show that when groups meditate together with coherent intention, crime rates drop, wars ease, hearts synchronize across distance. Imagine then, what happens when individuals like you, scattered across the planet, begin dissolving the old self and choosing coherence. A subtle grid forms. A network of light emerges. Humanity begins to tilt, gently, toward awakening. Do you see now why your presence here matters? Why there is a reason you were drawn to this very message at this very time? It is not only for your liberation, though that alone is sacred. It is also because your liberation is part of the collective equation. Every time you breathe with intention, you breathe not only for yourself but for countless others who are still caught in the loop. Every time you recognize and dissolve an old pattern, you make it easier for someone else to dissolve theirs. Because the morphic field has memory. When one tuning fork vibrates at a new frequency, it becomes easier for others to join the resonance. So perhaps you have felt alone in your awakening. Perhaps you've thought, no one around me understands. No one sees what I see. But understand this, you are not alone. You are part of an entangled field of countless others awakening right now. Across oceans and languages, across cultures and timelines. Your frequency calls to theirs. Theirs calls to yours, and together a hidden chorus begins to sing. This is why collective awakening does not begin with revolutions or headlines. It begins quietly, with individuals dissolving their old selves. It begins in the silent coherence of the heart, rippling into families, communities, nations, until the morphic field itself reorganizes. And you who are listening, breathing, recognizing, are part of this unfolding. Your decision to dissolve the old self is not just your personal destiny, it is humanity's. So let yourself feel the magnitude of this. Not as pressure, but as invitation. You do not carry the world on your shoulders. You simply carry your frequency into the world. And that is enough. Because coherence spreads, resonance multiplies, awakening ripples. And as you hold this awareness, let us step deeper. Because to understand just how profound this transformation is, we must embody it in metaphor. We must see, feel, and live the truth of what it means to dissolve the old and emerge as the new. And for that, we will enter the chrysalis, the DNA spiral, the phase transition that shows you what you truly are becoming. Close your eyes for a moment if you can. Imagine yourself inside a chrysalis. The world outside has gone quiet, and within, everything that once defined you begins to soften, dissolve, liquefy. The caterpillar cannot cling to its old form. If it tried, it would perish. Inside the cocoon, it must surrender to the unthinkable. Its body dissolves into formlessness. And yet, hidden in that dissolution are imaginal cells, tiny blueprints of the butterfly, already encoded, already waiting. Do you see the mirror? The old self you have carried, its loops, its habits, its patterns are the caterpillar's skin. You cannot fly while clinging to crawling. You cannot expand while clutching to contraction. Dissolving is not destruction. It is the sacred melting that reveals what has always been within you. Think, too, of water. For so long it remains liquid fluid, soft, responsive. But lower the vibration, and suddenly a phase transition occurs. The water crystallizes into ice, ordered and coherent. Raise the vibration, and it becomes vapor, free to rise and expand. At every phase transition, the molecules themselves do not change identity, they change relationship. They reorganize into new patterns that unlock new expressions. You are the same. When your frequency shifts, the old relationship to yourself dissolves, and you emerge into a new coherence. Or imagine DNA, the spiral staircase within every cell. Scientists once called vast portions of it junk, dismissing what they could not understand. But mystics always knew hidden codes, dormant potentials, waiting to awaken when the right vibration arrived. In the same way, parts of you have been dismissed, silenced, buried. But as the old self dissolves, those hidden codes stir. Dormant strands of possibility begin to hum. You are not becoming someone new, you are remembering what was encoded all along. Even the stars embody this truth. A star must collapse before it can shine brighter. The death of one form births the brilliance of another. Supernovas scatter heavy elements across the galaxy, seeding worlds like ours. Dissolution is not the end. It is the scattering that makes new creation possible. Your old self collapsing is the supernova of your soul, seeding timelines you could never have imagined. And now return to the chrysalis. Feel into that moment where the caterpillar is no longer what it was, but not yet what it will be. That liminal space, that in-between, that is where you stand right now. Perhaps you have felt lost, confused, stripped of old identities. But what if this is not failure? What if this is the sacred interval where imaginal cells awaken, where the butterfly blueprint comes alive? The old self whispers, "You are dying." But the truth whispers louder, "You are transforming." The chrysalis is not prison, it is passage. The ice is not limitation, it is a new order. The DNA is not junk, it is potential waiting. The supernova is not destruction, it is the scattering of seeds. You are dissolving, yes, but not into nothing. You are dissolving into the field that has been waiting for you all along, into the coherence of the higher self that already exists, calling you forward. So as you let these metaphors wash over you, notice how your body responds. A warmth in your chest, a tingle in your skin, a breath that feels a little deeper. That is the resonance of recognition, the imaginal cells within you stirring, the blueprint beginning to unfold. And in this moment, let yourself trust the process. Trust the melting. Trust the unraveling. Because on the other side of dissolution is emergence. And you are not just emerging for yourself. You are emerging for the collective field, for humanity, for the future that is already vibrating in your name. Which brings us to the final movements of this journey. First, the closing promise. The assurance that your future self is not distant, but already real, already alive, already reaching for you. And then, the sacred declaration, where together, we seal this transformation into the fabric of reality. Take a slow breath. Let it enter as if it carries light. Let it leave as if it carries everything you no longer need. Feel the truth in this. The version of you you've been seeking already exists. The future self is not a fantasy. It is a frequency, and frequencies exist now, not later. Just as a radio station is already broadcasting even if you are not tuned in, your higher self is already transmitting across the quantum field. You do not need to create it. You only need to align. Imagine a thread of light stretching across time, connecting this very moment to a luminous version of you. A you who has already dissolved the old self, already stepped beyond the loop, already chosen coherence again and again, until it became natural. That thread is not metaphor, it is entanglement. Physicists speak of particles influencing each other across space and time, instantly, without signal. That same principle applies to you. Your higher self is entangled with you now. The pull you feel toward transformation is not wishful thinking. It is the tug of entanglement, the gravitational pull of your own becoming. Let yourself feel it. The softness of clarity, the steadiness of trust, the effortless way the future self walks through life, not because challenges disappear, but because coherence dissolves the grip of chaos. Can you sense it? Can you feel the echo of a you who breathes differently, speaks differently, sees differently? That echo is not distant. It is inside you now, whispering, "Come closer, align, step into me." So here is the promise. The old self cannot hold forever. Patterns are dissolving even as you listen. And the more you allow coherence to replace effort, the faster you recognize that the shift has already happened. You are not waiting for it, you are remembering it. Think of it like dawn. At first, only a faint glow on the horizon. You may wonder, is it really coming? But slowly, inevitably, the light grows. You do not force the sunrise. You simply trust that it cannot be stopped. Your awakening is the same. The dawn is inevitable. The glow is already visible. Let this promise land deeply. Your future self is not separate from you. It is calling you. Every synchronicity, every déjà vu, every whisper of intuition that is your future self reaching back through time, placing markers on the path. And you, right now, are following those markers, whether you realize it or not. Do you see how beautiful this is? You do not walk alone. You walk with the echo of yourself, guiding you forward. The fear you feel is simply the old self unraveling, and the pull you feel is simply the new self already alive. So release the doubt. Release the timeline that says, someday. The shift is not someday, it is this day, this breath, this moment. Each time you choose coherence over chaos, presence over distraction, resonance over fear, you step more fully into the self that is already waiting. This is the closing promise. You cannot miss it. You cannot be too late. You cannot be too broken. The field does not abandon its own. The higher self is not conditional. It is inevitable. And as you let that promise settle into your being, prepare yourself for the final step, the sacred declaration. Because a promise alone is not enough, it must be sealed. And the way we seal it is through collective affirmation, through ritual words spoken into the field, anchoring this awakening not only for you but for all who are entangled with you. In the final part, we will speak those words together. A declaration that will not only dissolve the old self, but call forth the frequency of the new. Take one more deep breath. Let it draw the light in. Let it release the remnants of the old self out. You have walked through recognition, through resonance, through the chrysalis, through the promise of your future self, and now you stand at the threshold. This is where we seal it. Not with force, not with effort, but with words. Words are vibrations. Vibrations are frequencies. Frequencies shape the field. So when we speak together across distance, across time, across this hidden web, we are weaving coherence into reality itself. So I invite you to say this. silently or aloud, letting the sound or the silence vibrate through your being. I let go of the old self. I release the loops, the patterns, the illusions. I align with coherence. I step into the frequency of who I already am. I am not broken, I am becoming. I am not trapped, I am awakening. I am not waiting, I am remembering. It is done, it is sealed, it is now. Let those words echo. Feel them not only in your mind, but in your chest, in your breath, in your skin. Each syllable is a signal. Each phrase is an anchor. You are not only declaring, you are coding the field. And now, extend this declaration outward, because this is not yours alone. Write it, share it, inscribe it into the collective. Leave it in the comments below as if you are carving it into the fabric of time. When you write, I let go of the old self, you are not only affirming your own awakening, you are lighting a path for someone else who will read those words and remember themselves too. This is how we ripple together. One voice becomes many. Many become a chorus. The chorus becomes a field. And the field becomes the shift. So let us end as we began. With destiny, there is a reason you are here. There is a reason you pressed play. There is a reason you stayed until this final moment. And that reason has already unfolded. You are not the same as when you began. The old self is dissolving. The new frequency is alive. And as you step back into your day, your night, your life, carry this declaration with you. Whisper it when the old loop tries to return. Write it when fear tries to speak. Share it when another soul needs to hear. Because each time you repeat it, you strengthen the signal. It is done. It is sealed. It is now. And so it island.